So good evening. On behalf of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, I would like to welcome you here tonight. The primary purpose of tonight's meeting is to give you an opportunity to provide comments on the Rover pipeline project planned by Rover Pipeline LLC. I am Kara Harris, and I'm an environmental project manager in FERC's Office of Energy Projects. Jim Martin to my immediate left and Amanda Martinet to my right are also with the FERC. Jennifer Ward to my far left is a project manager with Cardno Entrix. Cardno is an environmental consulting firm assisting us in the production of the Environmental Impact Statement, or EIS, that will be prepared for the project. As you can see, this meeting is being recorded by a court reporter so that you can have an accurate record of tonight's comments. A transcript of this meeting will be placed in a public record so that everyone has access to the information discussed here tonight. I'll quickly run through tonight's agenda. I'll start out by briefly explaining the role of the FERC in our application process. Then I'll have a Rover representative present an overview of their project. Following Rover's presentation, we will then hear from those of you who signed up to speak at the table in the hallway and make formal comments on the project. So a description of FERC. FERC is an independent agency that, among other things, regulates the interstate transmission of natural gas. We review proposals and authorize construction of interstate natural gas pipelines, storage facilities, and liquefied natural gas terminals. As a federal licensing agency, the FERC has the responsibility under the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, to consider the potential environmental impacts associated with a jurisdictional project. With regard to the Rover Pipeline project, FERC is the lead federal agency for the NEPA review and the preparation of the Environmental Impact Statement. So far, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and the State of Ohio Environmental Protection Agency have agreed to be cooperating agencies and assist FERC in the preparation of the EIS. Additional federal, state, and local government agencies with jurisdiction by law or special expertise are welcome to cooperate as well. The commission is made up of 5 members who are appointed by the President and approved by the Senate. The commission staff, which includes myself, Jim, and Amanda, prepares technical information to assist the commissioners in making their decisions. When a company wants to build pipeline facilities to transport and sell natural gas in interstate commerce, the company files an application with the commission. Rover plans to file their application in the first quarter of 2015, and is requesting a commission certificate of public convenience and necessity by the end of next year. It is important for everyone to understand that the proposed project is not promoted by and was not conceived by the FERC or our cooperating agencies. The FERC staff reviews applications for the authority to build and operate interstate natural gas pipelines, and Rover is in the process of routing their pipelines and preparing an application to submit to FERC. Once the application is submitted, our obligation is to review that application and prepare an analysis of the environmental impacts. Tonight's meeting is not a public hearing. We're not here to debate the proposal or to make any determinations. We are here to listen to your concerns so that we can consider them in our analysis of the potential natural and human environmental impacts of the project and how those impacts might be reduced or avoided. If there are any general objections or support to the project, or other non-environmental issues concerning the proposal, those issues would be considered by the commission in its determination of the project's public convenience and necessity, but are generally considered outside the scope of our environmental analysis. So in other words, the commission does want to hear your concerns. They would just not be discussed in detail in our environmental impact statement. During our review of the project, we will assemble information from a variety of sources, including the applicant, the public, state and federal agencies, and our own independent analysis and fieldwork. So I'll briefly describe our environmental review process. We are currently near the beginning of this process. Rover entered into FERC's pre-filing process in June of this year, which began our review of the project. The purpose of pre-filing is to encourage involvement by all interested stakeholders in a manner that allows for the early identification and resolution of environmental issues. The FERC docket number for the project is PF14-14. PF meaning pre-filing and no formal application has been filed at FERC. Once Rover files a formal application, A new docket number will be assigned with a CP docket number designation. The goal of pre-filing is to get information from the public as well as agencies and other groups so that we can incorporate all substantive issues of concern into our review. On November 4th of this year, FERC issued a Notice of Intent to prepare an Environmental Impact Statement, or NOI, for the Rover Pipeline Project and initiated a scoping or comment period. The NOI was mailed to over 16,000 stakeholders and describes the environmental review process, some already identified environmental issues, and the steps the FERC and the cooperating agencies will take to prepare the EIS. We've set an ending date for December 18, 2014 for the scoping period. However, that is not the end of our accepting your comments. We will accept your comments throughout the environmental process. It's just the earlier we get your comments, the better it allows us time to evaluate them. So again, December 18th is the deadline, but we will accept your comments. Extra copies of the NOI and other project handouts are located at the table by the door where you came in. We have a speakers list at that table in the back, and we'll use that list tonight to call up speakers to the podium to give your comments on the record. If you wish to speak and have not signed up, you still have an opportunity to put your name on that list. In addition to verbal comments provided tonight, we'll also accept your written comments. If you have comments but do not wish to speak, you may provide written comments on the comment forms provided at the back table or your own paper. You can mail them in or give them to us. Just be sure to include the docket number PF14-14 so that we can ensure we get your comments for this project specifically. Your comments tonight, together with any written comments you've already filed or intend to file, will be added to the official record of the proceeding. We then take all of the comments that address natural and human environmental issues and, utilizing all available information and expertise, factor them into our independent analysis of the project's potential impacts. We will publish those findings in a draft EIS, which will then be distributed for a minimum 45-day public comment period. Additional public meetings similar to tonight's meeting will be held where we'll get your comments on the project's EIS. At the end of the draft EIS comment period, FERC staff will prepare a final EIS that specifically addresses each comment received on the draft EIS and includes all necessary changes, additions, and modifications to conclusions reached in the draft EIS. The final EIS will be considered by the Commission in its determination of whether to authorize the project, and if so, under what conditions. Currently, our mailing list for the project is over 16,000 stakeholders. If you received a copy of our NOI in the mail, you're already on the mailing list to receive our draft and final EIS. If you would like to correct your name or to remove your name from the mailing list, you can respond to the last page of the NOI and let us know whether you want to modify your address or remove it. But keep in mind that because of the size of the mailing list, you will receive a copy of the EIS on a CD-ROM in the mail. So we've asked a Rover representative to provide a brief overview of their project. They are aware that there are people signed up to speak, and we want to make sure we get to each person on the list. So Mark Vidral will come up and give a brief overview of the Rover project.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me? My name is Mark Vedral, and I am a Senior Manager for the Rover Pipeline Project. I'd like to thank the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission for allowing me to speak to you briefly this evening. I'd also like to thank the landowners and other members of the community here with us tonight, many of whom have worked with our team on land surveys, invited us to give presentations about the project, and called our project toll-free number with information about the proposed route of questions. It is our intent to live up to our promises of openness, respect, and integrity during every step of this process, from permitting and construction through long-term operations. I have 4 objectives that I'd like to achieve here in the next few minutes. First is to provide an overview of the Rover project, and 2, explain its purpose and need. 3rd, explain what you can expect from the Rover project team in our commitment to the community, and 4th, to give you a sense of the project timeline. First, project overview. First, about the project. In a filing with FERC in June, requesting FERC to approve our development of the project utilizing the pre-filing process, we propose the Rover Pipeline, a new interstate pipeline system to transport domestically produced natural gas from the Marcellus and Utica shale formations to markets in the U.S. and Canada. The Rover Pipeline is being designed to transport 3.25 billion cubic feet of natural gas per day through approximately 830 miles of 24-inch, 30-inch, 36-inch, and 42-inch underground pipeline. Rover is also proposing to build compressor and metering stations along its route in Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania. Tentatively, the Rover Pipeline has plans for 4 mainline compressor stations and 6 lateral compressor stations. In our filing, we propose that nearly all, 80%, of the pipeline run under agricultural land and parallel existing pipelines, power lines, or roads. In its $4.3 billion investment, Rover Pipeline has committed to utilize union labor resources exclusively to construct a pipeline based upon the large presence of available resources in the region and the union's high-quality craftsmanship and past performance for safety, reliability, and quality performance. Second, purpose and need. I'd like to make 3 points on the project's purpose and need. The Rover Pipeline will provide a reliable long-term supply of clean natural gas from abundant fields in the Marcellus and Utica shale formations. The first major new interstate of its kind originating from this area and then transporting gas to the West and Canada. 78% of the gas moved through the Rover Pipeline will be used by customers on the U.S. segments of the pipeline, including multiple interconnections with third-party pipes in Defiance, Ohio, to reach customers in the greater Midwest, Michigan, and Gulf Coast, and multiple takeoff points in Michigan that will interconnect with local distribution systems serving customers throughout the state. What is not consumed in the U.S. will be transported to the Union Gas Hub in Canada, where it will be traded on the open market for consumption, either back in the United States, in Michigan, into the Northeast, such as New York or New Jersey, or to customers in Canada. 2, right now there aren't enough pipelines to move gas from production regions to market. Natural gas production is forecast to increase by 44% by 2040, but not from traditional supply areas. For example, historic supplies from the Gulf of Mexico are down 46% over the past 5 years. This has left existing pipes underutilized and in some instances empty. The new gas that will replace the historic supplies is mostly going to originate from the Marcellus and Utica, where pipelines such as Rover will carry this abundant new supply to market. The Rover Pipeline will provide a much-needed supply source to the region, who is dependent upon out-of-state production to meet its supply needs. Thirdly, recently we announced the Rover Pipeline is fully subscribed, demonstrating significant demand. This means that we have received significant interest in long-term use of the Rover Pipeline. We have multiple 15 to 20-year contracts to transport gas through the Rover Pipeline. The Rover Pipeline will provide access to a much-needed new source of natural gas in the United States, continuing to reduce our reliance upon foreign energy sources. Thirdly, what you can expect from the Rover project and our commitment to the community. Our construction and safety commitment. The Rover Pipeline will meet or exceed all required safety systems and be constructed and operated in accordance with all applicable state and federal standards. Construction will include a visual and non-destructive inspection of every weld that joins sections of the pipe together. The pipeline will be tested with water under higher than normal pressure, and regulation devices will be installed to prevent pressure from exceeding safe limits. Rover Pipeline will have automated valves installed to shut off the flow of gas in case of an emergency. The pipeline will receive regular integrity testing and be monitored 24/7, 365 days a year by a full-time gas control and operating and maintenance staff. Pipe coverage for agricultural lands will be 4 feet or more. Non-agricultural lands will be 3 feet or more. And roads, streams, ditches, and water bodies will be 5 feet or more. Permanent and temporary easements. It is Rover's preference to reach a mutual contractual agreement with impacted landowners to obtain easements. Easements along the single pipeline route will require a 50-foot wide permanent easement and temporary construction workspace areas of 25 to 100 feet in additional space depending on site-specific conditions. We will work to develop easement agreements that meet landowners' individual needs. We know your land is a valuable natural resource, and the care with which we treat land and topsoil is of our utmost priority. Fourth, project timeline. Following the FERC public scoping meetings, we anticipate filing a FERC certificate application in January 2015 that will undergo public input and comment. We intend to work closely with FERC to provide any additional data or information and are hopeful that FERC will issue its certificate and the construction authorization in the first quarter of 2016. We would expect that a portion of the pipeline would be operational in December 2016 and the remainder by June of 2017. In conclusion, it is our intent to live up to our promises of openness, respect, and integrity during every step of this process, from permitting and construction to long-term operations. Please make note again of the project toll-free number for landowner questions, 1-888-844-3718. Again, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight.
Thank you, Mark. Again, after the formal meeting is adjourned, representatives of Rover will be available with their maps in the back for you to look at the map some more and to ask more questions. And just to point out, for those of you who just came in, there are seats available in the front of the room on each side if you did want to take a seat. So I'll just clarify really quickly about the applicant. Rover Pipeline LLC is currently routing their pipelines and locating its above-ground facilities to prepare and file an application with FERC. Rover is responsible for working directly with the landowners, preparing their environmental information, and providing the necessary information to ensure a thorough review and analysis by the agencies and the public. I also want to clarify the commission versus the commission's environmental staff. The 5-member commission is responsible for making a determination on whether to issue a certificate of public convenience and necessity to Rover. The EIS is prepared by the FERC environmental staff, and it does not make that decision. The EIS is used to advise the commission and disclose to the public the environmental impact of constructing and operating the proposed project if it were approved. The commission will consider the findings, conclusions, and recommendations in the EIS, as well as public comments on non-environmental issues, including engineering, market need, rates, finances, tariffs, and cost, in making an informed decision on whether or not to approve the project. Only after taking the environmental and non-environmental factors into consideration will the commission make its final decision on whether or not to approve the project. So we're now going to move into the part of the meeting where we will hear from the other audience members, particularly the affected landowners. As I mentioned before, if you'd rather not speak, you may hand in written comments tonight or send them into the secretary of the commission by following the procedures outlined in the NOI and our comment forms. Again, there are copies at that table by the door where you came in. Whether you verbally provide your comments or mail them in, they will be equally considered by FERC. So for the benefit of all in attendance and for accuracy of the transcript, I'll set some ground rules just to make sure this business meeting progresses smoothly. We have about 30 people on the mailing list so far, and we don't want to set a time limit, but we're going to start with a 5-minute time limit just to make sure we get through all of the speakers. That will take about 2.5 hours if you stick to 5 minutes. Again, we don't want to have to set a time limit. It's just we want to make sure everyone who did sign up gets a chance to speak. Amanda will call your name to the podium. When your name is called, please step up to the podium and clearly state your name and affiliation, if any. And please spell your name if misspelling is likely, to make sure the court reporter gets your name accurately documented in the record. Please speak directly in the microphone and address your comments to the panel so that you can be clearly heard by the court reporter, the panel, and the audience. And lastly, as a courtesy to our speakers and the rest of the audience, please turn off or silence your cell phones. Thank you.
First speaker is Amanda Summericks.
Good evening. I would first like to thank the representatives from FERC for holding these meetings and allowing those of us affected by the pipeline to voice our opinion. My name is Amanda Summericks, S-U-M-E-R-I-X, and I am the Director of Communications at the Michigan Forest Products Council. Our organization works to promote, protect, and sustain Michigan's vibrant forest industry, along with the interests of property owners. Michigan's 19.3 million acres of forest land supports approximately 150,000 jobs and contributes $14.6 billion in economic activity. We are here to voice our support for the proposed Rover natural gas pipeline. We do so because it is a promising opportunity for Michigan landowners, an important boost to our infrastructure, and an investment from a company committed to working with landowners and protecting Michigan's environment and natural resources. Our economy stands to greatly benefit from the immediate hiring of Michigan workers to build the pipeline. Further on, our economy will continue to benefit from the state's first access to energy reserves produced within the Marcellus and Utica Shale region. As Michigan continues to move away from conventional energy production, natural gas will be a key part of the system that provides Michigan's energy needs. We are also confident that the pipeline will be built to the most stringent environmental standards, following guidelines set by this body and other federal regulatory agencies. Furthermore, the training and expertise shown by the workforce selected by Energy Transfer have shown themselves more than capable of exceeding any environmental and safety concerns. Finally, and probably most relevant to this hearing, we are confident of the Rover project's ability to do right by Michigan property owners. Many people have voiced concerns over the way they were treated by subsidiaries of Energy Transfer. We understand that Energy Transfer has acknowledged these instances and has taken measures to avoid them in the future. Furthermore, testimony from tonight goes to show the workforce's commitment to doing the job right. We have been pleased with Energy Transfer Partners' commitment to responsible construction practices, their decision to utilize experienced local labor and construction, and their efforts with landowners to minimize impacts and fully restore impacted land. The company's aim to limit impacts to conservation land to less than 3% of the pipeline route is just one example of their good faith efforts to protect Michigan land. Our organization is eager to see this project get underway and encourages FERC to move the project forward in a timely manner. From employment to manufacturing and clean and plentiful energy production too, the Rover pipeline will positively impact Michigan well into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Bill Black.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the Commission for this opportunity to speak here tonight. My name is Bill Black, B-L-A-C-K, and I am the Legislative Director for the Michigan Teamsters. The United States is currently in the midst of a massive energy surge that is providing the nation with domestic, affordable, and clean natural gas. In turn, this surge is delivering a manufacturing renaissance for much of the country. Michigan's economic recovery has an opportunity to be part of this historic comeback. But in order to make this happen, we need to build out an infrastructure that will deliver this energy to residential, commercial, and industrial customers. The Rover pipeline will deliver 3 billion cubic feet of clean, natural gas supplies each day from Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania. The state of Michigan, because of its relatively high energy consumption, is the 9th largest consumer of natural gas in the nation. Rover would provide an important and affordable new supply of natural gas for energy-intensive industries such as automotive, glass, metal casting, chemical industry, pulp, paper, and many others. If working families in the state of Michigan are going to fully benefit from the U.S. energy boom, we need to get more of that energy to our state, and Rover will help bring that to our doorsteps. And in the short term, building Rover will provide 10,000 construction jobs with some $1 billion paid to workers and contractors in the state, most most important, the work will be done by skilled, experienced union contractors that employ local Michigan workers. Energy Transfer is committed to doing this work in accordance to the most highest safety and quality standards, ensuring natural gas will be brought in by skilled and qualified Michiganders. You may not know it, but Michigan has more underground natural storage gas capacity, 1.1 trillion cubic feet, than any other state in the nation. The reason you don't hear much about this is because Michigan's existing natural gas infrastructure is because it's been interwoven into our daily lives, operating safely and efficiently day in and day out. Energy is the lifeblood of the Michigan economy, and the Rover pipeline will inject new life into our economy. The state labor organizations, the people who helped build the state, are ready to get to work on this important project now. I appreciate your time this evening and urge you to move quickly in improving this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Bill Wynn.
Good evening. I'm Supervisor of Berlin Township. My name is Bill Wynn, W-I-N-N. I'm here to notify you guys, if you already don't know, we have 3 pipelines in our township already. We would appreciate it if they could find another route and, you know, put it in a different location. Or if that's not possible, then follow the pipelines that we got. For some reason, they're wandering all over the place, and I'm not really sure why. And if you do approve it, we would like to see that we have a lot of tile ground in our farmland. We would like to have the farmer be able to pick his own tiler. They're going to hire a tile company that maybe is not so good, I'm not so sure. So we would like that. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Dwight Tacey.
My name is Dwight Tacey. I represent the Burville Lions Club. We hold events where we have mud bogs, heavy tractors, monster trucks. We have a lot of vibration on our field. At any one point when we have these events, there'll be over 1,000 people on that field. This pipeline is running down our property line, and it's not very far from where we have all these trucks staged. We park semis in that area. We have a playground. We have 4 baseball fields. And when we have these events, everything's in operation. We want to know if we're going to be able to run our events and what effect will we have on that pipeline and how much danger is involved to the public. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you. The next speaker is Sandra Hamilton Tilley.
Good evening. I'm spelled S-A-N-D-R-A, Hamilton, H-A-M-I-L-T-O-N, Tilley, T-I-L-L-Y. I had an opportunity to speak to the representatives from FERC in Chelsea. And at that time, I discussed the tactics of Rover, what they were using with the landowners. I spoke about the forceful nature and the scare tactics and using eminent domain. Tonight, though, I'd like to address the concerns I have with FERC's handling of the comments and filings on the website, as well as the overall environmental review process. After the Chelsea scoping meeting on FERC's website, it was noted that the Rover union members were listed as the first participants, And that's not true. That evening, many of the landowners spoke first, and then at the end, the audience was bombarded by the union representatives. I'm just questioning the way that it was recorded on the FERC website. Secondly, I wonder why the union members are allowed to send mass comments that are marked as individual comments to the FERC website. There is no mention of the necessity of the pipeline, other than that it will create jobs. There's no mention of the impact on the environment. Thirdly, in Chelsea, I was surprised to hear that the union members were allowed to speak as their comments had nothing to do about the environment, but rather the economic impact on their lives. As a union member myself, I understand the importance of a union, and I certainly understand and sympathize with them needing jobs and to support their family. I'm not against unions, but the public and landowners need to know that this economic impact is short-term. Yes, it may employ 3,000 people. My question is, are those 3,000 people Michigan residents, or have they only been here 6 months? In your notice of intent to prepare the environmental impact statement, the first paragraph, last sentence reads, "The Commission will use this environmental impact statement in its decision-making process to determine whether the project is in public convenience and necessity." I would like to know, as I'm sure others, what does that word public convenience mean? Further, since the introduction of this project to the public, the pipeline has moved 3 times in the area that my family has their property in Washtenaw County. Just this week, unofficially, we heard that it is going to perhaps move a 4th time. My concern here is, with all this moving and with the time deadline coming and approaching fast, and I heard tonight you're going to extend that deadline in December 18th. But how are these people going to have their concerns met? They're getting on board late, as my family did, because we weren't allowed to attend the open houses because I guess the pipeline had moved from its original state. So we missed all the open houses in July. I would like to see FERC, if possible, put out information at the earliest stages of the project, perhaps during the gas line open houses. There may have been a representative in Chelsea, I don't know, I wasn't privileged to that meeting. It would be good if people were aware of how you file a comment on FERC. Had I not attended the meeting in Dexter, and a gentleman from another county gave a presentation on how to do the filing and what was necessary, I would have been clueless as to how to go about this process. So I feel there is definitely a lack of communication and knowledge. Why are township supervisors notified later in the project? Why aren't they notified right early on so that there can be township meetings and that the individual pipeline people come to the meetings on a local basis? So much of this adversarial environment could have been avoided had there been smaller, a little more personal groups. Also, if the supervisors would have had township maps to know what residents are going to be involved, it would have been helpful. Because I know that there are some landowners that aren't opposed to the project. That's fine. Put them on board. But let the other people have a voice. I do appreciate that in looking at your intent for your environmental filing, that you did notice the purpose and need for the project, the impacts of clearing forested areas and other vegetation, the impact on water resources, sensitive springs, groundwater, wetlands, the impact on land using agricultural land and drainage systems, the use of eminent domain, the impact on property values and recreational resources, impact from construction noise, pipeline integrity, public safety, alternatives, and cumulative impacts. My concern is that this list itself already speaks volumes for not approving the project. We already have 5 pipelines now between Michigan and Ontario. DTE is already planning their own Nexus pipeline to serve Michigan and Ontario. Today, our government should be focusing on ways for improving and using renewable energy. We are headed in the wrong direction. If our government okays this additional pipeline, such as Rover pipeline, which is bigger and poses more risks, it will be very detrimental. In the year 2020, California estimates that 1/4 of their energy will be strictly renewable through the use of solar panels, biofuels from plant algae and the wind. We should be headed in the renewable direction. We should not be destroying our land and infringing on individual freedoms for a large corporation short-term profit. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Gary Wolfram.
I'd also like to say I appreciate your having these hearings for people to speak for and against this or medium with this pipeline issue. My name is Gary Wolfram, W-O-L-F-R-A-M. The Rover pipeline is important for both Michigan and the United States. The use of horizontal drilling has made the U.S. the largest producer of natural gas in the world, with only Russia producing within 25% of what we do produce. The U.S. Energy Information Agency is estimating that U.S. production is going to increase by 44% by 2040. Infrastructure is needed to transport natural gas. The Michigan House Subcommittee on Natural Gas in April of 2012 concluded that, quote, new gas pipelines will be needed in Michigan to receive larger volumes of natural gas so as to not bottleneck flow and to minimize pipeline transportation costs. Now, this need will become even more necessary if the recent agreement with China for the United States to reduce its greenhouse gases 26% below the 2005 emissions within the next 10 years is ratified. Natural gas produces about half the amount of CO2 emissions per million BTU of energy as coal. This means there'll be a greater increased demand for natural gas to replace coal. Combined cycle natural gas power plants yield heat efficiencies of 60% or more, compared with nuclear at 35% and coal at 40%. This is all particularly important in Michigan, as currently about 55% of our electricity generation comes from coal. There will likely be over time a movement away from coal-fired power plants to natural gas, and with this will create a substantial increase in the demand for natural gas. It's also possible that natural gas vehicles may become economically viable, which will result in demand for refueling stations that may reach critical mass. As the pipeline is going to last for decades, development of this infrastructure will allow for incentives to create new ways to use natural gas, further reducing energy costs and adding to economic activity. Pipelines are the safest way to transport natural gas, and currently there are over 300,000 miles of natural gas pipelines in the United States. And natural gas is used in a variety of ways. It's an essential fuel and raw material in many manufactured products. About 98% of manufactured goods require some natural gas in the manufacturing process. It's used for heating, cooling, waste treatment, and processing, and as a raw material for manufacturing of chemicals, plastics, fertilizers, pharmaceuticals, and other products. As an example of the benefit of this, a plastics producer would get a double benefit. They'd have cheaper feedstock gas, and which is the raw material for their product, and lower electricity costs. The Rover pipeline will allow for the efficient transportation of natural gas throughout the Midwest and Canada, in particular Michigan. And as with any product, its efficient use in the economy depends on its ability to transport it. And it's got to be moved from areas where it's produced to areas where it's going to be consumed. The interstate highway system was an example of attempts to do this, and has been quite successful in reducing transportation costs of goods and services throughout the country. Years ago, natural gas was flared at the wellhead as there was no way to get it to market. The Rover pipeline would be an investment of more than $4 billion and create approximately 10,000 temporary construction jobs, which about 3,000 of these would be in Michigan. And these workers then would generate economic activity as well by buying things in restaurants, heating or renting spaces to live, entertainment, etc. The pipeline would produce a right-of-way payment to landholders and generate tax revenue for the state of Michigan and for local units of government. In summary, the Rover pipeline would be a significant factor in improving Michigan's economy and environment. Thank you.
I'm sorry, sir. Who are you affiliated with?
I'm an economist, and I have a consulting firm named Hilltop Policy Group.
Do you live in Michigan?
Excuse me, would you not speak
It took
out?
me 3 hours to drive here.
Why did you come?
Would you not speak out? If you do want to speak, would you please sign up on the speakers list so we can get to the next person on the list and make sure people who did sign up do have their opportunity. Thank you.
Excuse me, I have a procedural question. That gentleman was at the Flint meeting last night. Why is he here again talking? He doesn't live here.
Excuse me.
What's he got to do with the environment?
This is an open forum where we're giving everyone an opportunity to comment. FERC did come all this way to hear from every single one of you who signed up to speak. So please just give the speakers the opportunity to speak and respect their opinion. It's not necessarily a vote of whether you agree or not. We just want to hear everyone's comments and get them in the record. Thank you.
The next speaker is Brigham McGowan.
Good evening. And just for the record, I'm Brigham McCown, MC, C-O-W-N. I spoke last night as well, and I wasn't going to speak tonight, but now I am, and I've decided to. I'm from Ohio, not Michigan, but I did have enough common sense to marry a gal from Grand Rapids. So, if I may start, good evening. I just plan on submitting my formal comments, which I'll do at the end of my oral statement, which I left back on my chair, but I'll get them to you. But after speaking to some before we got here, I decided the record needed to be corrected. I'm often asked to comment on new infrastructure projects, and my response is that we need to support these new projects. Why? Because continued investment in state-of-the-art infrastructure, it's necessary to support our economy and our way of life. And whether it's roads, bridges, or pipelines, we all count upon the safe and efficient movement of goods and services, and even ourselves, from point A to B. We cannot heat our homes, we can't provide the fuel necessary to create electricity or fuel our cars and trucks without them. Pipelines aren't any different than any other form of transportation. Although they're largely buried and out of sight, pipelines are very much our underground energy highways. How do I know this? Because pipelines and energy transportation are crucial to the economy each and every day. And as some of you know, I served as the first head of the federal government's Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration. That's the agency in Washington, D.C. that is responsible for ensuring the safety of our nation's 2.6 million miles of pipeline, as well as the 1.5 million daily shipments of hazmat by air, truck, sea, and rail. The energy commodities overseen by PHMSA amount to 2/3 of all the energy products we consume on a daily basis. Speaking of pipeline infrastructure, I've heard safety concerns, I've heard from landowners who simply don't want it in their backyard, and I've also heard from some who say we have to be green. Even the rosiest energy projections state that renewables will not be capable of providing the majority of our energy needs until sometime well after 2040. Natural gas is an important bridge fuel. It works well with renewables and is the preferred choice for electric generation. Most people understand that pipelines are not only required, they're the safest method for moving large amounts of natural gas. Our country is a great nation, and we've been successful because we dare to do and build things. And at 99.99952% safety rating, no other transportation method is as safe or secure. I want to point out the members of the Iona members that are present today. It troubles me, frankly, when people refer to their jobs as temporary. I served as a military officer, but perhaps my job was temporary also. Our country needs as many shovel-ready jobs as possible, and these aren't temporary jobs. These brave men and women work construction projects as their way of life. Lower energy prices directly translate into more money in our pockets at the end of every day, and that fact can be seen clearly in the price of fuel at the pump. That money grows our economy, it expands our tax base, and it provides resources necessary to continue investment in renewables and emerging technology. Without new infrastructure, our goods and services have a harder time getting to market. They cost more, but frankly, that's what some desire. Make no mistake that failure to invest in new infrastructure not only costs us all money, it means we have to rely on older, less efficient infrastructure. Newer pipelines include state-of-the-art technology and controls. They use more stronger and flexible steel and offer the highest levels of safety possible. Safely transporting energy to the market knows no political ideology, and our current transportation safety record is unparalleled in this world. Have there been accidents? Yes. People talk about Marshall, Michigan. We have to learn from those accidents, improve the regulations, and move forward. This pipeline is not an Enbridge pipeline. It is not a crude oil pipeline. It is a natural gas pipeline. I want to say that the failure to invest in new infrastructure is actually more impactful. It makes us less safe, undermines the environment, and robs us all of our productivity, time, and money. Thank you.
Next speaker is Bruno Walter.
Good evening. I just want to make a comment that the previous speaker had. I farm in Columbus Township, and our township is full of pipeline corridors, and but I know one of those corridors goes to the same place, St. Clair. A pipeline goes into Canada where this proposed pipeline will go, but they choose to take a different route, and I can't see why they can't stay on the existing pipeline corridors and use those for the pipeline. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, Mark Wilson.
Good evening. My name is Mark Wilson, and I'm the president of Land Stewards. Land Stewards will be a consultant to Rover Pipeline. We will provide services designed to repair the drain tile and conservation practices, which over time will begin the process of restoring that land to its long-term productivity. Land Stewards is a multidisciplinary consulting group that specializes in caring for the land in a manner in which it ensures its long-term productivity. Each member of our team cares passionately about the land. And we hear the landowners tonight, we understand their concerns, and we take them very seriously. We understand soil degradation, we understand soil permeability, air-water exchange, the need for biomass and root reestablishment of soil structure. And because of that, we have included in our team soil scientists, agronomists, agricultural engineers, and conservation planners. And most importantly, our team members include local drainage contractors who are familiar with agricultural drainage, familiar with soils in this area, and most importantly, they know how to work with farmers. In fact, many of these guys are already doing work in this area. My point is, we have the knowledge, the skills, and the expertise to restore the drain tile systems and conservation practices that will be disrupted by this pipeline. And yes, Rover will be paying us, but the reality is we will be working for the landowner. We will be an advocate for the land. Our mission is simple, it's complicated but simple, and that is to do what's right for the long-term productivity of the land. And quite frankly, when we were first approached by the Rover Pipeline about taking on this assignment, we were hesitant. We knew the scale and scope and the importance of such a mission. And then as we thought about it, we realized who knows the soil better than we do? No one. Who knows agricultural drainage better than our guys who do it for a living professionally? No one. And then we ask ourselves, if we don't do it, who will? If not us, who? So we put together a coalition of individuals who will undertake this important mission. This is our home too. Our reputations are on the line, and we're not going home when the pipeline crews go home. We will continue to live here, do business here, and these landowners will continue to see us, and our reputation is important to us. In summary, by working together, by establishing open and honest communication, and perhaps most importantly, by building trust, we will be able to begin the process of identifying and protecting and restoring the drain tile systems and conservation practices, which in turn will, over time, begin the process of restoring the long-term productivity of the land. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Eileen Eisch.
Good evening. My name is Eileen Tesch, T-E-S-C-H. I just want to express some conclusions that we have made on behalf of the private landowners on St. Clair River and the Rover pipeline crossing site as presently proposed. We're very concerned regarding the safety, economic, social, and cultural and environmental effects. In fact, we think it is a virtual time bomb. We believe that Rover's blatant attempt to use this particular easement, or create this easement on the river, is their most expedient and easiest crossing route, while avoiding other more accommodating and existing sites that may involve difficult negotiations with the competitors or the private utility entities that currently exist. An attempt by Rover personnel to secure a new and less expensive river crossing site on this private property under the guise of the eminent domain. This tactic would alleviate Rover having to negotiate with other pipeline competitors and public utilities who own available right-of-ways and easements within a half-mile north and south of the presently proposed private property. There are other available river crossing routes not associated with the private property as presently proposed by Rover. I also want to just highlight a couple of the comments made by Representative Candace Miller and her concerns for the proposed pipeline. And she says particularly that her concerns is the impact it's going to have on the community. And not that we're against the pipeline, but just that there are many outstanding questions that need to be answered, and I know that's why we're here. Particularly, will this pipeline be constructed on existing easements, and how it will minimize the adverse impact to landowners who will be impacted by the construction and the eventual loss and use of their property. And perhaps most importantly, what steps Rover's taking to ensure the safety of the residents who live in the vicinity where this pipeline will ultimately be placed. And she urges that these questions are thoroughly explored and answered by FERC before the application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Dave Mayatki.
I will yield to Audrey.
She's 9 minutes. Is that okay? My name is Audrey Mayatke, M-I-O-T-K-E, and I happen to live directly next door to where the proposed pipe will be located. And north of us is William Hainer. His name is H-A-E-N-E-R. And if this pipeline goes in, it will be 40 feet from our bedroom on north of us and south of us. So the property that they want to put it on is only 75 feet wide. So you can see how that will really affect our home. If this does go in, we're very concerned about it. Besides the concerns for our safety and on a daily basis, the potential hazard to our home and family and other consequences of the project, there are homes up and down the river that will be affected by this, and we're concerned about our property value also. In addition, currently the University of Michigan and Michigan State University have a spawning reef under construction right in front of where this proposed pipeline is going. This project has been under the federal funding, and the University of Michigan, the Michigan DNR, and the cost of this project has been over $1 million, and it's just started just shortly. So if the pipeline goes through, will this affect what they have done in this spawning? So we're also very concerned about that. And as Ms. Tesh has said, there are other, we don't have a problem with them coming through. It's just to come through a residential area, we have that concern. But there are alternatives for routing this project. And there are existing energy corridors approximately 1 mile north and 1 mile south of our location. The location to the north, adjacent to Putty Gut Road, currently houses some high voltage transmission lines and numerous pipelines that cross the river from Michigan to Canada with approximately 300 feet of riverfront the way. The location to the south of us is DTE, and so that would also be a possibility that they could do that. So we would certainly like them to look at alternative crossings and not go through a residential area. Thank you.
We encourage you, if you know specific routes that you would prefer FERC to look into and also to get Rover to look into, to please file them in the record. If you can give us road locations, if you don't have a map, even tonight we did take down some details, if you want to go to the back table on your way out. That's for everyone. If you know an alternative, you live here, and when we're looking at this route, we don't necessarily know what you're thinking and your concerns. So letting us know that while we're evaluating will help us greatly. So please take the time after the meeting to make sure we get those specific details down and we can look into that.
Or we can send you.
The next speaker is Robert Farley.
My name is Robert Farley. I'm a landowner in Elmont Township. I'm not a paid consultant to ET Rover or a professional speaker like many other people we've heard from this evening. So my comments are from the standpoint of a landowner and a citizen of Michigan. Stated purpose of the proposed pipeline project is to transport natural gas being produced by means of hydrofracking in the Marcellus region of West Virginia. The proposed pipeline will transport unrefined natural gas through several upper Midwest states to a processing facility in Ontario, Canada. The environmental consequences of hydrofracking are unknown, but concerns have been raised that the quantity of toxic chemicals injected deep into the ground and the use of massive quantities of fresh water needed to perform hydrofracking have the potential to significantly damage the freshwater aquifers needed for agriculture and domestic consumption. I'm opposed to continued hydrofracking operations until such time that unbiased scientific study confirms the complete safety of these practices. Furthermore, according to a New York Times article published January 28, 2012, the estimated quantity of natural gas available for extraction in the Marcellus region has been greatly reduced, as reported by the U.S. Energy Information Administration. In January 2012, the estimates available indicated that a 6-year supply of natural gas was available from the Marcellus shales. Considering the proposed pipeline is not scheduled for completion until 2017, it would appear that the resources planned for this pipeline may not or may be nearly exhausted before the line is in service. The existence of the proposed pipeline would encourage the spread of hydrofracking operations outside of the Marcellus region when those supplies are exhausted, or possibly before. Extending such reckless operations into the environmentally unique and priceless Great Lakes region would be short-sighted and foolhardy. Continuing to seize private land, imperil natural environments and ecosystems, and invest vast financial resources to perpetuate dependency on a finite and environmentally destructive energy source does not appear to be in the interest of the citizens or the nation. The proposed routing of the Rover pipeline will disrupt forested land with mature stands of trees throughout much of the currently planned route. The stated need for a 100-foot wide construction easement will destroy thousands of acres of forest and other vegetation. In areas of mature forest, the trees destroyed cannot be replaced and would take generations to regrow a similar forest. A permanent easement will prevent reforestation on the land thus disrupted. On my own property, the originally proposed pipeline route would destroy scores of mature white oak and maple trees, many in excess of 36 inches in caliber and 80 feet in height. Michigan State University campus construction standards place a value of $30,000 to $40,000 apiece for trees of this size. It's unlikely that individual landowners will be compensated fairly for this loss of property, nor will the citizens at large be compensated for the degradation of the natural environment resulting from this type of destruction. The proposed route through Lapeer County in southeast Michigan crosses many wetland areas. On my own property, the proposed line will disturb wetland, encroach on the unique Linwood muck agricultural soils, and lie within the drainage area and floodplain of Bell River. In Elmont Township, the residences located in agricultural property immediately south of Bell River are considered well-sensitive properties. My own well was difficult to establish and required a significant investment in treatment equipment to produce an adequate domestic water supply. Clean water aquifers are difficult to locate and tap due to the heavy clay soils extending uninterrupted to bedrock levels. Wells extending into the bedrock are obtainable, but often produce sediment-contaminated water and or saltwater brine that's useless. The type of heavy equipment and soil disturbance necessary to construct the proposed line will potentially damage established private wells, rendering them useless. Personal experience with the existing pipeline construction and easements has revealed that soil productivity on agricultural land has been reduced for decades. The compaction of soils, disturbance of topsoil, and unnatural responses to freeze-thaw cycles directly over the buried pipelines all appear to negatively impact the agricultural productivity of the soil. I strongly object to the practice of granting power of eminent domain to private corporations for use in seizing private land for for-profit corporations. Thank you. The justifying logic supporting the concept of eminent domain assumes that national public need can supersede private property rights. The proposed Rover pipeline will transport unrefined natural gas to Canada. It's difficult to identify any benefit from this project to the affected landowners and the citizens of the United States, considering the gas and line between Shiawassee County, Michigan, and Ontario, Canada will not be distributed for use anywhere in the U.S. It would appear that the covert motivation of E.T. Rover is to establish a conduit for the exportation of natural gas surplus supply to foreign markets for profits exceeding what can be obtained in domestic markets with the current depressed natural gas prices. Furthermore, I've repeatedly asked E.T. Rover why the proposed construction would not occur entirely within the existing Trans-Canada gas pipeline easement that diagonally crosses Lapeer County and extends to the same location in Canada as the proposed new line. I've been told that Trans-Canada, quote, will not permit, unquote, another pipeline within their easement. I fail to understand why the power of eminent domain would apply to my private property, but would not be used to compel Trans-Canada to accept lines within their easement, especially considering the easement that Trans-Canada owns does not confer ownership of that private land. The practice of continually carving up private land for the benefit of large corporations is not consistent with the fundamental principles of private property and individual sovereignty guaranteed by the Constitution. Granting power of eminent domain to E.T. Rover effectively nullifies any legal rights of private landowners to control the use and development of their own property. In my own case, my property has been enrolled for more than 40 years in the state of Michigan Farmlands and Open Space Preservation Act. Granting a private for-profit corporation legal power to use my property for commercial and industrial uses contrary to my wishes is entirely inconsistent with the intent of the preservation program and would squander the investment the state of Michigan and the taxpayers have made in protecting these properties. The originally proposed route of the Rover pipeline through my property will bisect an open meadow that was the location of the Bell Arbor settlement in the 1840s. The original settlement was founded as a utopian community near the banks of Bell River by Reverend Shaw. Many of the original settlers are buried in nearby Webster Cemetery. I've established a landscape art project on the site of the Bell Arbor community using new landscape planting in conjunction with mature trees that appear to have been planted by the original settlers. In the early 1850s, my great-great-grandfather purchased my property after the failure of the original and abandonment of the original Bell Arbor settlement. My land has been continuously owned by members of my family for more than 160 years. The proposed construction will disrupt the integrity of this registered centennial farm and will potentially destroy the cultural significance of the Bell Arbor site that is yet to be fully examined and documented, as well as destroying my landscape art installation. Many citizens and local community government officials have expressed concern over the safety of the proposed pipeline. The extremely high pressure and large size of the proposed line, one of the largest that would exist in the United States if constructed, create safety concerns for many residents living near such installations. Ironically, there were multiple natural gas line leaks and failures that occurred at the same time that E.T. Rover was surveying property in southeast Michigan. One such leak, explosion, and fire occurred in Prudhoe, Saskatchewan on October 11, 2014, which burned out of control for almost a week. Residents had to be evacuated from their homes. In September 2014, a natural gas pipeline leak in Berrien County, Michigan, resulted in the evacuation of 500 residents, contamination of agricultural crops, establishment of roadblocks, disruption of community services, government expense, and endangerment of private citizens' life and property. Michigan residents and government are still dealing with the consequences of the Enbridge pipeline leak in the Kalamazoo River in July of 2010. These are only 3 recent examples. A simple search of the internet reveals an extensive list of pipeline accidents in the U.S. just within the last 15 years, emphasizing the unpredictable and erratic safety record of all energy pipelines. It has been noted by several sources that the proposed pipeline extending across unsecured, rural, private land presents a threat to national homeland security, an opportunity for terrorist action using simple, improvised explosive devices to create massive devastation. The increased danger proposed by the proposed construction is very real, and the compensation to citizens in affected areas is not adequate to protect them from this threat. One of the many vague assertions made by E.T. Rover in planning this project involves the benefit to local economies. E.T. Rover has stated tonight and other times that local jobs would be created by this project. Having seen firsthand the economic effects of an existing pipeline corridor on my property, I can attest that no local employment has resulted in the decades that these lines have been in existence. It's interesting to note that the survey operations undertaken by E.T. Rover in southeast Michigan have utilized out-of-state survey companies and workers. A crew of more than 30 individuals surveyed my property on October 18th. The crew arrived in more than 12 vehicles, not one of which was licensed in Michigan, and not one of the workers was a Michigan resident. This example illustrates the insincerity of E.T. Rover in providing accurate information or protecting the interests of the citizens. If the FERC determines that there is a need for additional pipeline construction within the U.S. to serve the Marcellus region, then I would strongly urge consideration of less disruptive alternatives than that represented by the Rover pipeline project. At the very least, new pipeline construction should be limited, whenever possible, to be located entirely within existing utility easements. This use of existing easements would minimize the impact on private property and ecosystems, as the land within these easements has already been compromised by existing utility construction. Consideration should also be given to modifying existing practices to allow construction of such pipelines within interstate freeway right-of-ways. These freeway right-of-ways are already owned by the citizens, and use of land within these right-of-ways would eliminate further encroachment on the property of private citizens. I would also urge the FERC to give due consideration to competing pipeline project proposals that would utilize portions of existing lines to serve the same Marcellus region and would thereby greatly reduce the amount of new construction necessary. This use of existing infrastructure would obviously result in less construction-related disruption of private land and environmental damage. In representing the federal government, I believe the FERC has a duty to consider the needs of the nation and the rights and well-being of individual citizens. Use of the questionable and finite resources of the Marcellus region and the environmentally reckless practice of hydrofracking do not represent a long-term sustainable energy policy for the nation. The Rover pipeline was not planned to cross Lapeer County, Michigan until after mid-August of this year. As has been noted by other speakers tonight, the proposed route has changed several times in the months that we've been aware of it. E.T. Rover has never clearly stated why the earlier proposed route through Oakland County, Michigan was abandoned and why the current proposal is preferable. Since relocation of the proposed route, E.T. Rover has pressured local landowners very aggressively to permit surveys to the extent of issuing written correspondence via certified mail, threatening legal action if permission was not granted. This was done with no prior notification to local government officials and with very vague information offered at public meetings and via Rover printed corporate propaganda. In Lapeer County, Michigan, the private citizen government opposition to the proposed project is widespread and unequivocal. Resolutions opposing the proposed project have been passed by the Lapeer County Board of Commissioners, Lapeer Township, Elmont Township, Imlay City Township, Berlin Township, Hadley Township, and Lapeer County Road Commission, just to name a few local examples. Similar opposition has been filed by government bodies in other Michigan counties and the Sierra Club. The response of private landowners and citizens has been similarly widespread and unequivocally opposed to the proposed project. Michigan's Congresswoman Candace Miller has also recorded her opposition to the Rover pipeline project as currently proposed. In consideration of the current widespread opposition, the concerns for the cumulative negative impact on agriculture, safety, the environment, and property values, I urge the FERC to deny permission to EC Rover for the proposed construction. At the very least, I request that any decision to proceed be delayed until January of 2018, giving the state of Michigan, local government, and private citizens time to gather facts, review alternatives, and give adequate time for citizens to organize and represent their needs and concerns in dealing with the aggressive plans of a large corporation with financial and legal powers greatly in excess of any private citizens. If any approval is ultimately granted, I would request that the power of eminent domain be removed from such approval so the private citizens' property rights are not effectively eliminated. Thank you.